Welcome back to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett back again. Tonight we're joined by Chris Martin. How are you doing, Chris?
Good. How you guys doing tonight?
We're doing well. Where are you
We're
calling
better
from?
hanging out with you.
Yeah. Well, what was your question there, Jack?
Where are you calling from tonight?
I'll call from Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Nice.
Great. All right. Well, the format is we talk about pre-mission, getting your call, and then we skip over to just hear about what you've been up to since you've been home, and then we'll go back and reminisce. So if you want to start us out with how you ended up in Scotland.
Perfect. Well, so I kind of went on my mission a little bit late in life. I was 23 years old when I went on my mission. And so I already had a girlfriend. I was ready to get married, and a mission was kind of furthest from my mind. When I wanted to get married to my girlfriend, now my wife, I'm a lucky 2%er. So what happened is that she says, I have a list of requirements, right? And one of them is, you got to be a worthy priesthood holder. You need to be able to serve a mission, and the leadership skills you gain there are invaluable. And then, there'll be a blessing for your family. And I said, well, okay, I could do that, but I'm 23, and so we kind of hem-hawed, and she says, well, I'm going to give you about a month to think about it. And so we kind of had a mutual breakup, as she tells it. So we broke up. And about that month, she travels off to Europe with the Ricks College Humanities Tour, and she travels all over Europe for a month. And I'm left in little old Idaho Falls, Idaho, to think about what I'm going to do with this information she told me, and if I want to be with her, or whatever the case may be. And as every good story starts out, when you're in doubt, you pray, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'll pray, and we'll see what we kind of come up with. And I remember very distinctly, being in my single college, apartment. I was living in Rexburg, Idaho at the time, and I wasn't going to BYU, Idaho. I was up there just to chase her. And so I remember being there, and I just, said, hey, very simple prayer. Should I go or not? And a little naively, I was waiting for that distinct answer, right? And I'm like, well, I didn't get anything. And I kind of got frustrated, and I didn't receive that answer I wanted to receive, yes or no, in absolute clarity. And I remember going to bed that night and being a little frustrated, thinking, well, maybe, something will take place. Well, inevitably something did take place. A couple weeks later, my future father-in-law pulled me aside and said, hey, I think it's really important that you should know a couple things. And he pulled me aside and he sat down with his dad and my future father, so my future grandfather and father-in-law. We sat down, and he's like, hey, look here, kid, you're 23, but you don't know anything, And so he laid out the rules of how his mission helped him. And then I turned around and listened to his father outline his one of 5 missions that he went and served, both as a young man and as an older married individual, right? And he goes, it will change you forever, and everything you're going to learn is what you're going to learn within those 2 years is going to set you up, right? So, okay. And in that moment, you get that clarity, and you're like, okay, I can do this, I was raised by a single mother. I'd been moved out of the house since I was 17. I saved up all this money, wanting to invest it in something like a house or a car or a wife, right? They take a lot of money. So I wasn't quite sure what that was going to be, but until I got that answer, I was able to go through and figure out, yes, I'm going to invest it in a mission. So I went and informed my boss, hey, I'm going to send in my paperwork, and we'll get ready to go. I worked with my bishop, got everything ready to go, and everything fell in line, right? When you kind of look at the blessings in your life and you realize, okay, there are some advantages to growing up in a little town outside of Idaho Falls called Yukon. And that little town, you get to know everybody in that little unit that kind of builds you up, right? And as a child of a single parent, it was really advantageous for me to be involved in Boy Scouts and be involved in young men activities, and in the priesthood activities, to give me that male role model. And so as I got those male role models, we ended up going through, and each one of them became the bishop or a stake president at a key moment in my life, right? So one bishop baptized me, and then my best friend's dad ends up being the bishop, and then my other best friend's dad ends up being the bishop, and then inevitably that first one that baptized me became the stake president. Okay, so everything kind of fell in line. So I'm now talking to my best friend's dad, who's now the bishop. I'm now talking to my other best friend's dad, who baptized me, and he's now the stake president. And he's like, hey, well, let's work through it. So 6 months later, I was all ready to go, got everything done, sent off my mission papers, and I think it was like the fastest turnaround. I think I got it back in I want to say something like 3 weeks. And it was just, I just remember distinctly mailing it off and then kind of forgetting about it a little bit with a little bit of anticipation, because knowing, just like Christmas Day, you get excited, right? And you're just like, okay, if I don't think about it, I'm going to go through and it's going to happen faster, right? So I kind of put it on my mind, and in 3 weeks, bam, I got it. And so I happened to be at work, and my mom, being very diligent in checking the mail, she goes through and says, hey, I'm going to, bring you something. Let's go out to lunch. I'm like, okay, not even anticipating that she'd be bringing my mission call to me. And we had this really great, tender moment. My mom, like I said, being a single mother, raised me and my brother, of which I'm the eldest. And, I'm the first one in my family in 6 generations to go on a mission. So to sit down for my mom to say, hey, I've been a single mother, I've raised you, I've loved you, I've taken care of you, and then to sit down and say, okay, now it's time, for you to kind of grow up a little bit and serve this mission. She surprised me as we're eating and finish up lunch, and she pulls it out, says, okay, before you open it, where do you want to go? And I have absolutely loved history my whole life. I mean, I've studied history, I've researched history, I listened to podcasts about history, even now as my adult life, and I read as many books as I possibly could when I was younger, right? About history. And my true passion was British history. Not only just medieval British history. So I'm getting very, very specific, right? So I'm getting to the point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to Britain. She's like, okay, all right. And she hadn't opened it, hadn't anything. I just called out of the blue. And lo and behold, the best mission in the world, I get called to Scotland,
Oh, wow.
That's fantastic.
And it was just outstanding. I have Scottish history in my family. I wasn't an advocate of the genealogy then, but I am now. And what a great benefit, So I get to go to Scotland. Perfect. Well, that happened to be, I get my mission call in August of 2001. And I have to wait 3 months. Well, during that 3 month time, I'm waiting, I got it about the end of August, and then August, September, October, and then November hits. And November hits, and 9/11 comes by, and the whole, United States is just shook, right? By the Al Qaeda attack on the trade towers in New York. I'm thinking, oh crap, maybe I won't be able to go on a mission. I remember having that palpable fear that somehow they're going to send me to Utah. You know what I mean? I mean, not saying against anybody that served in Utah, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm in Idaho. I don't want to go to Utah. That's too close, So I have this palpable fear, like I was so close to touch that dream of being able to go to Europe and to go to Scotland and to feel that reality kind of come true. And 9/11 and all the panic takes place, and then I leave, in October. And I remember getting on the plane, and this is the first time in United States history that we've changed our whole outline on how flights and the airport functions. Yeah, we had a security check, but it wasn't big. I mean, I remember flying to Phoenix as a kid, where I grew up, to go through, and literally you would get on the plane, and everybody could sit there in the terminal waiting for you, and the next thing you know, okay, plane's here, okay, see you, bye.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden going from that to complete isolation. I remember walking up to TSA gate. I have all of my gear that I'm going to pack with me for 2 years, all this luggage. And I go in, and I'm like, okay, lay my luggage out there. And they're like, oh, hey, you've been randomly flagged, by the way, for a TSA search. Oh, good. Okay. So they go through all of my stuff and they look at me with this puzzled look like, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going to Scotland. And they're like, oh, okay, well, how long have you been gone for? I'm leaving the country for 2 years. Why would you ever do that? What are you doing over there? You working? I'm like, yeah, not really for myself, but for the Lord. And they're like, oh, well, good luck with that. It's cold there right now. I'm like, okay, whatever. So they search all my stuff. And we get on the plane and we're about ready to leave Idaho Falls Airport, and like the worst fog storm kind of rolls in. I mean, not as bad as Scotland, but bad for, Southeast Idaho, right? And they say, hey, your flight has been canceled to Salt Lake City. You're going to have to fly to Boise, Idaho, which is on the other side of the state, heading away from Salt Lake. To get there, you have to get a connecting flight and then go over to Salt Lake to catch your original flight if you have enough time. So I'm like, okay, great, wonderful. So I'm sitting there, loaded on the plane, and thinking I'm the only missionary on here. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but when you put on that missionary tag, you're expecting people to ask you questions. What are you wearing the tag for? What do you stand for? What are Mormons? All that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting there in a slight panic, 23 years old. I didn't think I was adequate yet, that I could share that testimony right off the get-go without any missionary training, right? And to my a little bit of I don't know, to my relief, sister missionary jumps on, and she's going to an absolutely different mission, but she has to do a connecting flight to Salt Lake. So she jumps on, and we sit next to each other because we're like, well, we're missionaries now. We sit next to each other, but you're a girl, but it's okay. We'll sit here and we'll take this flight, right? Because you already get that missionary awkwardness kind of building up in you. And so as we take off and fly to Boise, and then from Boise we catch a flight, miss our flight in Salt Lake, fly to Atlanta, miss our flight in Atlanta, where there's another 30 missionaries waiting for us, right?
Wow.
And so they're all waiting, and we finally arrive, and then 4.5 hours later we leave from Atlanta to fly to Manchester, England. And I've flown back and forth to Phoenix quite a bit, and I thought, you know what? This is not going to be bad at all. It's going to be a short flight, Well, 14 hours later, you arrive in Manchester, and you're just knackered, right? You're just tired. And they pick you up in that bus, and they pack you in there like sardines, and then drive you off to Preston, And it was just a roller coaster of experience through the MTC in Preston. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
So let's skip over now. When you got home, tell us what you've been up to the last 20 years almost.
Perfect. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm lucky, one of those lucky 2%ers. I got home, and my then girlfriend, now wife, waited for me. So we wrote constantly on the mission. President Wilkinson, I think he had a soft spot because I don't know if you gentlemen know, but President Wilkinson, Randy Wilkinson, was a lucky 2%er too. Sister Wilkinson waited for him. Wow. And so he kind of looked at my situation. My mom was less active at the time, and she would write me a lot of my missions. So when I got home, my wife and I wrote all the time. I mean, she probably sent 8 letters to my 2. You know what I mean? So it was a poor ratio on my part to kind of, keep her interested. But she's pretty diligent, and she waited and finished college and all that time. And the moment I got home, we literally got married in 6 weeks. So she was close to getting ready to be married. She didn't care at that point if I said yes or no. She just needed to groom, right? So she had everything ready. And so, I'm glad she said yes, but we get married, and we get married December 30th. And so to get married December 30th, my wife's birthday is the 28th. Our anniversaries are the 30th, and then New Year's, and then my birthday on the 21st of January. So we have Christmas through my birthday, and we had 2 weeks during Christmas break for my wife to finish up her college at the time, and her last semester there at Rick's College, and then transferred over to BYU, Idaho. And we got married during that Christmas break, and we had enough time to run down to Salt Lake for a quick honeymoon and come back. Fast forward beyond that, we literally we have 4 kids, fantastic kids. My oldest is 16 years old. His name is Seth. Then I have a beautiful daughter. She's 14. Her name's Eliza. And then I have 2 younger boys. Liam is 12, and Riker is my youngest, and he's 10. So if you did some quick math, that's every 2 years we had a new addition to the family. So I usually introduce them as I have 3 heathens and a princess. So I mean, you know, it is a complete maelstrom of Martins running around the house. I worked for a little while, both before my mission and after my mission, at a local grocery store called Rowling's. If you ever spend any time in Idaho at all, especially Southeast Idaho, Rowling's is like Albertsons. You know, they kind of have a little store just about everywhere. And then after working there for 2 years after my mission, I fell into a true passion. I was going to BYU, Idaho for a history and poli-sci degree. I was working a full-time job at Brolum's. I was working a full-time career in college, you know, trying to get that ready to go. And then I was working part-time as police. And I ended up getting the best job in the world as a police officer in my wife's hometown, which is Rigby, Idaho. I worked as a police officer for 12 years. I retired at the rank of sergeant detective. And during that time, I did everything. I mean, I worked homicides, suicides. I worked narcotics. I'll send you a couple of pictures of me in a gnarly goatee and some unkempt hair, working narcotics, and it was just an absolute blast. And then when I got promoted to sergeant, I went through and I participated in an extreme physical fitness competition in 2017 in Laguna Beach, California. And just a little bit further south than that is Dana Point, California. And just absolutely beautiful. Now, being raised between Phoenix, Arizona and Yukon, Idaho, both deserts, you know, I've never swam in the ocean. The first time I saw the ocean was when I went to Scotland. So, and that really wasn't the ocean, right? It was, you know, it was the Irish Sea, it was the North Sea, and it was the English Channel, right? But it wasn't really the ocean. So I get out the Pacific Ocean, and part of this competition, like I said, it's an extreme 38-hour physical fitness competition where you don't sleep.
Man.
And you go through, and if you have to eat, you know, you're doing push-ups to eat, you know, and you kind of go down, take a bite, come back up and chew in the up position as you rest, you know. And then during that time, I ended up swimming in the ocean for the first time. There's a section of it of which we did a lot of calisthenics and cardio workouts and swimming in the ocean. And one of them was a 1,000-meter open ocean swim. It took place at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you had a little rescue vest on. And I mean, they took you out in this little dinghy, you know, and there's 50 of us. So they had a couple dinghies out there at the same time. And you put on a rescue vest, you'd pull the cord and it would inflate, you know, if you were feeling you're panicked or had a problem. And then you had a chem light on the back. And that chem light was for them to track you from the boat as you swam towards the lights at 3 o'clock in the morning towards the shore, you know. And I was doing really good, you know, clean breaststroke, you know, getting good, solid paddles in, you know, get a set of good pace. That's 1,000 meters. It's a long ways to go. And I've never swum in the ocean before. That was really my first experience of actually swimming in the ocean. And about, maybe 10 strokes into my swim, the guys on the boats are like, hey, by the way, there's sharks out here. And it's generally about 3 to 5 a.m. is when they feed. That's when they're the most active. And so I went from that good, solid swim pattern to a full-on doggy paddle. You know, sheer panic sets in. You know, I'm a 12-year police veteran. I figured I got all this. But really what it comes down to it is that, you know, I've seen what lies beneath, right? I've seen Jaws, okay? You know, and growing up in the desert, you know, you can't just let that go. Okay. And so he says shark, and I'm like, oh crap, you know, full on doggy paddle. So I probably swallowed about 3 gallons of seawater and finished the competition. You know, and I'm feeling great. It was in November when I went, and by December and January of the next year, 2018, I just had this like 3-month-long flu. You know, I just couldn't get over, you know, being ill, and my heart was racing out of control and all that stuff. And so I remember very uniquely, I was getting ready to go on a night shift, and law enforcement is really brutal because you would work in my department. You work 16 days of days, having 4 days on, 4 days off, 4 days on, 4 days off, right? And then you turn around, and then you'd work 16 nights of nights, having 4 days on and 4 days off until that 8 cycle would be done. And every 16 days, you go through that cycle. about ready to go to nights. And I said, look, I'm just feeling like crap. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to drop you off the doctor's office. I'm going to do my visiting teaching. And we're going to go through and, tell the doctor to give you like a C-pack or a Z-pack, whatever the common, take care of your flu type idea. And so I go through and I'm like, sure, no problem. So she goes off to do her visiting teaching. There's a traditional just snowstorm happening in Rigby, Idaho at the time. And I go in there and they hook me up to an EKG. And I was 38 years old at the time. And the doctor's like, the EKG is broken. Let me get the other one in here. So he gets the other one in here and puts it on there and goes, let's get you to x-rays really quick. And without any explanation, he just kind of moves me from room to room and we do all these procedures. And then he goes, you know what? I need to send you to a specialist for a cardiac specialist. So I'm like, I'm 30 years old. What do you mean a cardiac specialist? And ends up the determination is that I ended up getting what's called a viral cardiomyopathy. That means I was introduced to the common cold or flu that I've never had before, one of the strains. Just like COVID has multiple strains, you have Omicron and whatever else that come after that iteration, right? I ended up getting just the common cold or flu, and because it's a virus, there's no antibodies for that. There's no way to kind of protect against that. So I get sent to a specialist that day for cardiac, and I remember sitting in the front waiting room of the doctor's office, waiting for my wife to finish up the visiting teaching, and I said, hey, I need to go to this cardiac specialist in Idaho Falls. I'm not sure why. The doctor didn't really explain himself. And as I'm sitting there typing that out to my wife in a text, I see an older gentleman, because I'm in my jurisdiction now as a police officer, and he's, instead of driving the normal pattern, he kind of weaves in and out of this parking lot I'm in. He decides to flatten out this S curve and go over all this, yard decoration that's now covered in like 2 feet of snow. And as he goes over this, he gets stuck high centered right on this rock, and I'm like, crap, this old guy's not going to get his pickup truck out, so I'm going to go out there and help him out. So I turn and I look, and the receptionists aren't watching me, so I jump up and run out and call my patrolman on. I say, hey, get over here. I got a guy that's stuck. We just help him out really quick. And so I'm out there. We're pushing on this truck, and I see this doctor out of the corner of my eye running from my right side, and he says, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm getting this guy out of the snow. What do you mean what I'm doing? He's like, no, you need to come back inside or I'm going to call you an ambulance. So I'm like, what do you mean I call me an ambulance? Well, what he didn't explain to me then that I've learned now, I ended up having what's called an ejection fraction. So there's a golden ratio for your heart, okay? And that golden ratio says that every time your heart beats, it will draw in 100% of the blood it needs to fill the 4 chambers of your heart, and then eject 60%, keeping 40% to prime your heart for the next cycle of beating, okay? Well, my ejection fraction at the time was at 14%, meaning that the blood flow from my left side to my right side has been compromised so much because my heart's really just kind of fluttering. It's not really beating. And so he's like, hey, you can pass out any moment here. I can't let you sit out here and push this truck. So he drags me inside, and my wife comes up like an hour late, and I got the cardiac specialist call me up saying, hey, what's the deal? And I said, I'll be there right there. My wife's coming to pick me up just now. Well, she ends up getting stuck because of all the 2 feet of snow. And if you can imagine, a visiting teacher and her companion, are out there trying to dig out frantically. My wife not knowing what's going on because I haven't communicated to her. And so we show up to this cardiac appointment late and find out that I have a compromised heart because of this virus. And so fortunately, I was really blessed. The departments I was working for, I had built up right around the vicinity of like 5,000 sick hours. So I built up 5,000 sick hours, and then I had vacation time on top of that. And so I took 3 months off. I was on oxygen for 3 months. I went through my first heart surgery where they put in a full-time defibrillator. And then after that defibrillator was put in, then I went through my second heart surgery to put in mitral valves. My mitral valve and between my left ventricle and my left atrium was compromised because the left side of the heart got oversized, right? And when it grows too big, it becomes inefficient in pumping, and that's what's going to drive your ejection fraction ratio. So they go in and they put some mitral valves in, and they basically made it from 14%. Now I'm up to 42%, which is slightly better than the average because 40 is the golden ratio, right? And so I ended up getting that taken care of, but I had to retire. So I retired from law enforcement at the ripe old age of 38 years old. And I had 18 years left for my retirement to be, I already made my retirement vested, but I had 18 years left in my career as a police officer. So over the next 5 years after that, it's now 2023, and I got the greatest blessing in the world. My wife's a school teacher. She teaches freshman English and freshman speech. The two classes I don't think any freshman ever wants to take, you know, both of those. And I got the best email. My wife says, "Hey, I got this email for a new job position opening up at the Career Technical Education Center that's affiliated with the local school district here." And they're like, "Well, why don't you apply?" And so we applied and we figured out what we're doing and everything like that. So now I teach law enforcement at a high school level to juniors and seniors. And it's been a complete blessing for me because, you know, when you do something so passionately, you know, and you feel that that's my calling. That's what I was meant to be. I mean, you know, seeing all those Neds in Scotland, you know, and getting in the couple fights I did with the local Scots, you know, really said, okay, I can do something about controlling people's attitudes and all that stuff and help kind of change the world for the better. So it was nice to go through and now be able to teach on the level of high school to get these young students interested in law enforcement. So
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Wow.
that's great. So now you got me scared. I'm 38 and thinking, I'm okay. I'm not doing any crazy swimming in the ocean, though. Man.
Right. Yeah. Stay away from the ocean.
Intense.
It turns out that the ocean does have germs. So.
Oh man.
You probably got more germs because of how much water you did swallow. I mean, goodness gracious.
Right. You know, I always thought that salt water would not carry germs, but you know, I was wrong.
Yeah. Wow. What a story.
Yeah, that was.
That's great. And it's great to hear about your family and how things are working out for you there. That's wonderful.
You know, my oldest son, he's 16 now, and he takes my class for law enforcement. So he's getting excited for a career in law enforcement. So
that's cool.
All right. Well, now we can go back. You can start, you know, with the MTC. You told us about getting there, of course, but you can start there. You can start in the mission, however you want. Just walk us through areas, companions, whatever you want to talk about. Time's yours.
Perfect. Well, after we arrived in the MTC in Preston, England, it was like walking on cloud nine the whole time. For me, as a history nerd, you know, it was like, oh, this is the best experience. You know what I mean? And I remember being bused to the MTC about 11:30 at night, and the temple is just beautiful. And I'm thinking, okay, well, where's the MTC? Because I mean, everybody else that's had the experience of going to the Preston, or not Preston, but the Provo MTC, and they talk about, oh yeah, the Tree of Life and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it is what it is. Everybody's gonna have to do it, you know. And we roll up, and I'm thinking, well, where's this building at? Because you see pictures of the Provo MTC, it's massive, right? It's huge.
Yeah.
And you roll up, and it's just this very nice, you know, maybe 3-story. I can't remember if it's 3-story or 4-story, just down from the temple. I mean, a short little walk in a nice gated area, and it just. I remember rolling up, thinking, okay, I can do this. This is gonna be easy. You know, this is gonna be like totally worth it. You know, and we go in there, and there's just 19 of us. You know, 30 of us start in Atlanta. And then as we land in Manchester and do other things, you know, they kind of go off to different areas, different missions. But 19 of us get to go to Scotland, or rather to the MTC experience. Right there. And as we roll in there, you know, you had 14 hours to get to know everybody on the plane. We all sat next to each other, you know, and just a wonderful experience. I think some of my best memories. Everybody talks about, oh well, the food is nice, right? I just love the fact that I was in Britain and in this opportunities to live here and experience everything they had to offer me. You know, I love the accents. I thought, oh, great, Scotland's going to sound just like this when I get out of the MTC. And you get to practice with all these nice, polite English people, and they do everything that they possibly can to help you out, right? And I remember getting on the bus to leave 19 days later. You go through all these experiences, there you're jet lagged, you're trying to get used to the time, you're eating, very bland food. I missed all my spices. Southwest, and then in the West Coast, or rather west side of the United States. So I'm missing all that, but other than that, great experience. I remember getting on the bus, and we're on this big, massive tour bus to take us to the train station in Preston there. And we get on the train, we lug all of our stuff in there, and it would look like we just literally came out of like this big, massive bus. We're all dressed in dark suits, overcoats. It's bucketing down rain, and we look like we're a bunch of mafia members rolling out, right? And we get on this train, and everybody kind of instantly gives us all this room as we're throwing like luggage after luggage after luggage, of the select individuals that get to go to Scotland with us, loading up this train. And we all sit down together, we're chatting and talking. We're excited to be on the train. And we're literally like a few stops down the road from Liverpool, and the train comes to an abrupt halt. And the conductor walks down the train, screaming at everybody, "Get off the train! Get off the train! We're on strike."
What?
Okay, we're nowhere close to Scotland,
Oh
and
my
I
goodness.
know at that time, I've looked at the map, right? We're not close to Scotland at all. And so we're in Liverpool, and we get off, and there happens to be one member there, and he goes, "Missionaries, where are you going?" I'm like, "Well, we're heading to Edinburgh. We're supposed to be on this train, but we're on strike." "Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll get it figured out for you." I said, "Are you from the mission, or I mean, what do you hear?" He's like, "No, I'm actually going to work. But since you're stranded here, we'll get something outlined for you." So he calls up. He happens to know, some people to contact. I'm sure the local stake president or whatever the case may be. And he calls up the Preston MTC. They didn't know the train went on strike. And they were going to send some vans for us and drive us up to Scotland. And it kind of worked out. About an hour later, as we're waiting around this train station and where everybody's on strike, the church member comes up and he says, "Okay, you got it all figured out. You guys are going to go and jump on the double-decker bus, and they're going to drive you as far as they can towards Scotland, and then you get another bus, and they drive on that bus as far as they can to Scotland, and then you go to another bus, and then you'll be in Edinburgh by like 11:30 at night."
Oh my gosh.
So we're like, "Oh, okay, all right, we'll go," And so we load everything up, and you guys have been on the double-decker buses before. There's not a lot of room for luggage at all,
Nope.
And so there's all of us getting on. I believe there's about 9 of us that went, and we just load up all this luggage. And this bus driver's like, "What in the world are these guys doing?" And this being our first experience on double-decker bus, where do you sit?
Up top.
You got to go on the top because you want to know what's going on, right? So you lug all of your suitcases all the way up to the top, throw them all on the back. We take up the whole top, and there's only 9 of us, right? And we start heading off to Edinburgh. And the hours tick by, and the buses change, and the hours tick by, and the buses change, and finally we arrive, and we're just completely tired. 11:30 at night, and I remember getting to the mission, and they dropped us off at the bus station. I don't remember which one they dropped us off at because you're just so disoriented. By the time you're there, you don't know what bus station you're at. All you know is, okay, somebody's supposed to pick us up. And remember, the zone leaders pick us up in the van, and they load us all up, and they put all of our gear in the back, and they stack it in there like Tetris masters, and they get everything just perfect. And they're like, "Okay, we're taking you to Arthur's Seat." What's that? Where we're going to go? 11:30 at night. We're taking the whirlwind tour through Edinburgh, right? Okay, there's the castle, there's the disgrace, there's, as they fly through Edinburgh and get out of Edinburgh just a little bit and go to this dark, foreboding, windscaped hill they call a mountain, and you get to go up to Arthur's Seat. So we went up there almost close to about midnight, get up to Arthur's Seat, and you dedicate your mission there. And it was like, you could see the whole, skyline of Edinburgh just laid out before you. in every direction. And the lights were just beautiful. It was probably the first cloudless night in Scotland I've ever seen. And it was just stunning, right? And just off in the distance, you can see the ocean, and you can see the Firth of Forth way out there in the distance. And it's just beautiful, clear as can be. And you dedicate your mission there. And that's the first opportunity I ever had to really just feel like, okay, I belong here. I'm dedicating myself to be ready to do this mission. So we have a wonderful spiritual moment there on Arthur's Seat, and then they bring us back down. They're like, well, it's too late to have dinner with you, but President and Sister Wilkinson want to send you to this bed and breakfast because they don't have enough rooms for all of you elders to be there. So they leave the sisters in the van, and they run in and they check us into this B&B. And this guy was slightly frustrated because it's now after midnight. He has to get up to welcome all these guests, and they're a bunch of Americans. So we all want to shower. We all want to get ready to go to bed, knowing that we got to get up as soon as we possibly can, and then really start our missions. So going to 51 Spilal Road was just amazing. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and the jet lag was just seriously horrible. And everybody's trying to get up, and they're all trying to shower. I think there's only two showers in the B&B, if I remember right. And you just take your turn really quick, get in there, come back out, and get everything ready to go. And then we head off to 51 Spilal Road. And it was just the best experience to see the narrow streets, to drive on the wrong side of the road, to meet President Wilkinson and Sister Wilkinson, and how they greet us at the house. And instead of having dinner, we have this amazing lunch, and we outline everything on this, this menu and lunch, and have a fantastic lunch. And we go almost to the early part of the evening as we go through some orientation, we go through some procedures, we go through what we need to do for the mission, and we end up really just soaking it all in, because we're already in the groove, right? We've been to the MTC for 19 days. We can sit down and listen to lecture, So we lean back and get all that stuff ready to go. And they say, hey, you guys gonna stay for dinner, an early dinner, because we're gonna pack it up for you, but we want to sit down and talk to you before you go, and then we'll send it off with your brand new mission companion, right? You can meet your trainer. And so they said, we're going to send you out chapping really quick. And so I'm like, well, what's chapping? And they send you out, and there's just a bunch of missionaries eager to see the newbies, right? All the greenies lining up, and they take you out and they go. And I remember the guy, the elder that I was with, he's like, hey, you want to go meet J.K. Rowling? Who's that? He's like, oh, you'll know once you see her, you'll know. I said, okay, perfect, let's go. So we jump on a bus and we take off. We only had about an hour and a half or so, and he takes me straight to J.K. Rowling's home. He ends up chapping into her. He and his companion chapped into her and said, hey, she came to the door, talked to them. He wanted to bring another missionary back, to do that follow-up, to make sure that they really don't want to reject our message, or maybe they're ready now, And so he takes me to J.K. Rowling's home, and we ring the buzzer on the front gate. It was a beautiful sandstone structure. It had a nice little privacy gate, as they do in Scotland, before you can actually get to the front door. This one happened to have an electronic buzzer on the front gate. And she says, who is it? We have a little conversation over the buzzer. We want to draw her out. So I said, well, can you come and talk to us? And she says, sure, no problem. So she walks out, early evening, the second day I'm in Scotland. And she goes walking out, talks to us for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, very polite, very, very polite. She's like, no, as I explained to the other missionaries beforehand, I'm not really interested. I have a Book of Mormon. They gave me one. But it's nice to meet you, all that stuff. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, that's great. I don't know who she is, but, we're going to go on. So that missionary is like, yes, J.K. Rowling is twice my mission, right? So as we're heading back, I'm like, well, who was that? He goes, Harry Potter? You haven't heard of Harry Potter? I'm like, well, no, I'm not quite sure I have, because Harry Potter just came out as I was leaving, And I don't know who Harry Potter, Harry Potter, what is this? And he explains briefly what Harry Potter is. And so I've wasted now my 15 minutes of fame meeting the one famous person face to face at their house as a missionary. So,
Well,
shortly after we go to all of that, we get assigned. And my very first companion is Del Levesque. And what an outstanding individual he was. We had so much in common. He was from Arizona, from Mesa. I was from Phoenix, originally born, and then we moved later from Phoenix to Yukon. But outstanding opportunity to meet Del Levesque and to be brought back to Irvine. So we got to stay. My first area of my mission was in Irvine, on the west coast of Scotland. And what an experience. You take the train from Edinburgh to Glasgow, catch the exchange, you go from Glasgow to Irvine, and as you're just going through the Scottish countryside, I got to go the whole breadth of the width of the mission, in one fell swoop, without missing a beat, and then ending up in Irvine. And we hurry get to our flat, and it's P day. Transfers are always on P days, right? So we get everything ready to go, and he goes, "Hey, we'll change down into your P-Day clothes, grab your tag. We're going to go out, and we have an opportunity to go teach, but we have to be really low key. These are a bunch of American college students that are going to the local university over here, and we just ran into them, and we became some good friends. So just dress really casual. They don't want to be scared away by all of this, missionary stuff." Okay, all right, no problem. I'm getting nervous, I've never taught before, other than practicing the MTC. And so we go over there. Well, lo and behold, it ends up being that we're heading over to Brock Hansen and Dustin Clough's flat in Saltcoats. And we get over there, and there are two missionaries that are out there already, and they're our zone leaders. So here's Elder Hansen, Elder Clough, and they thought it would be absolutely hilarious to see if they couldn't prank me into teaching a first discussion underneath this guise as American college students, right? So we get over there all the way through, and I was kind of sucked into it at first. I get halfway through the first discussion, awkwardly reading through the discussion pamphlets. I know, I don't know, Zach and Jack, I don't know if you guys had the discussions, or did you guys have the Teach My Gospel?
I started with the 6 and then switched to Preach My Gospel about halfway through.
Some little bit of the pure gospel teaching doctrine right there. But so I said, get halfway through the first discussion, and they're like, "We can't take it anymore. We can't take it anymore. We're your zone leaders, And they'd made me a complete Scottish dinner with haggis and neeps and toddies and oat cakes, and that's what I had second night in Scotland, So I get hit with culture right off, and a little bit of comedy and lifelong friendships, absolutely just
Awesome.
off. And I find out that Dustin's from Arizona, and you get a chance to really just enjoy, talking about home. And they'd been out a little bit longer than I had, and it was just a fantastic opening to my mission. After a few short months with Del Levesque, I get my first transfer happens, and Brady Tucker comes in, and Brady is from Firth, Idaho. So I go and I meet him, and it's like, dude, where's all the missionaries from Utah? I mean, I know they're like out there, right? And he's like, oh yeah, there's thousands of them, but you got to realize those Idaho guys are special. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And he goes, where are you from? And we talk about it, and us Idaho guys and all this stuff, and we had a complete, just fantastic time in Irvine. My second transfer, I get, Brady, and he is just outstanding. He's a great guy, and just really just does everything to kind of show me how a missionary behaves after you get trained. What do we do? How do we plan days out? And of course, I learned that all with Del, but Brady showed me more what a missionary could do. And talk about a missionary of faith. Brady was really, really just dedicated every single time. Pray before we go out. Pray when we come in. Pray when we get a break. He was just outstanding example for me to really get honed in as a missionary. And thinking I'm going to be transferred. I'm getting all excited. It's that transfer Eve kind of feeling. You get a little butterfly, waiting for a call. And I find out I don't transfer, but I get a new companion. And I get Tyler Cox. He comes in, and Tyler is from Thermopolis, Wyoming, like the farthest away you could get, and not be, not be in another country. It feels like, looking at it from and so he and I at first kind of butt heads because he had a set routine. He's been in the mission field for a while. He's really ready just to kind of, hey, I got to eat breakfast first every morning. And this guy could pack away pancakes like it was going out of style. Like, you sit down like, hey, I don't eat lunch, so you better eat a big breakfast. And so he would eat this pancakes, and then we'd leave on time out the door 9 a.m. to go, start chapping. And I spent, one transfer with Tyler Cox, and I get transferred to a very, very far away location from Irvin. I get 2 stops down the train tracks, and I get to go to Paisley. So as I go to Paisley, I go from this beautiful seaside, quintessential Scottish town to going to my first kind of idea of what Glasgow and the outskirts of Glasgow is really like. And almost like a switch has been flipped. It went from a Scottish brogue to Glaswegian. And so if you haven't had the experience, it was like, what are you saying? I've been in the country for a couple months now. I'm pretty fluent in broad Scotch, What? Say it again, It made me feel like I was a brand new missionary all over again, just coming to Scotland to hear the language for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And I get assigned with the most outstanding Englishman that I've ever had, which is Chris Powley. And he goes, well, what are you into? I said, well, I played a lot of soccer. He goes, great, because that's all we do on Saturdays to go proselyte. We play soccer for the first 4 hours of the morning. We have a local football club, and we're going to go play soccer. We're going to get these tough guys come and do our lessons with us. Okay, all right. Well, I happen to be there for all of a week, and it's our first Saturday, and I don't have any cleats yet. I've never bought a pair of cleats. I just had a bunch of tinnies on, right? So I was just running around in my tinnies, and I get cleated across my left toe, and it breaks my toe, and it totally just black and blues the toenail, right?
Oh no, goodness.
Crap. So I don't know if you guys remember or not, the amount of walking we did in Scotland out of fear that the Neds would disassemble your bike, and if they couldn't disassemble, they just light it on fire, right? So you couldn't leave any bikes out there. So really, you just had to go out and walk mile after mile after mile. If you ever had a broken toe, especially your big toe, you don't realize how much you use it, until you start walking all of that pavement in Scotland. So Chris Powley was a great English missionary, because knowing, just like I had my same trepidations about being sent to Utah, he had the same ones being sent to Scotland, right? He's like, I've been here. I literally live in York, right outside of York, in a little town called Redcar. And it's like I went to Scotland, all the time. So he had a bit of a sour attitude about Scotland, but he loved the work and he loved to do what he was doing. And then I stayed there. We had a wonderful flat on Walker Street right there in Paisley. It was part of the Victorian era tenement housing that had been, thankfully been remodeled, because the old outhouse was still in the back garden, and we were up on the second floor flat. And Chris and I got on like a house on fire. We had a good time. It was the power of Chris united, and it was fantastic, right? And then that next transfer comes along, and I lose Chris, and I pick up my second English companion, Joseph Oliver, and he and I come from so different worlds. If you could speak culturally, right? He was very much the elder that would love to set his alarm at 5:30 in the morning. 15 minutes later, have like that snooze button go off again, And then you had a second alarm because the first one was digital, would go off at 5:30. And then you have a second alarm that would be set, but it was the old analog clock with the bells. And I remember that he would love to set that 5 minutes before 6 so he can get up and be ready for the day. And I'm one of those on time, very prompt individuals. That means if I have to be up by 6, I'm going to get up at 6. If I need to be in bed at this time, I go in bed at that time. So I was very on time to keep, those mission rules, and try to fulfill as much of that as I possibly could. And I remember he would love to hit that snooze button and hit that snooze button, and then that analog thing would go off. Well, like a month and a half of this going on, it's just 5:30, 5:45, and then the analog at 6 was just driving me bonkers. And so I'm like, that's it. I said, Oliver, I love you, and I remember you define your companionship talks you used to have with your companion. And you sit down, and then later on, of course, we know that as define the relationship with your wife, right? And how that works and how it's going to function from here. But they're getting you prepped. They're getting you prepped for that. Define your companionship. And so we're sitting down, we're talking about it. I said, I can't think anymore. I said, please, I love you, but please get rid of that analog clock. Oh no, my grand gave it to me. I can't get rid of it. I said, I don't care who gave it to you. So a month and a half of all these delays, and then all of a sudden at 6, I get the analog rude awake. I said, absolutely not. Let's work on this. So we worked on it for a little while, and it just wasn't getting any better. And so I told him one night as we say our prayers, and we're ready to jump into bed, our separate beds, and I say, look, Oliver, please get up at 6. I don't want to have to do anything drastic, but please get up at 6. And he goes, oh, yeah, no problem. I'll get up at 6. Sets his alarm, sleeps through all of them or snoozes through all of them, and gets the analog clock. And being on the second floor, I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed that stinking analog clock. I opened up our shuttered window and I threw it out in the clear open, and it's still ringing. It hits the road and explodes into like 1,000 pieces, and it was like angels were singing. It was so tranquil. It was wonderful. And he rudely gets up, and he's like he'd just been startledly awoken, by this window being thrown open and this clock flying through the air, and as it hits the ground 2 stories below us, and he's like, Martin, what did you just do to my clock? I'm like, I'm going to buy you another one, but we're not going to redo this whole scenario. I need to get your attention. I want to sleep until 6. The mission says 6. That's it. He's like, oh, and I remember him being so mad at me that he called up the mission president. I said, President Wilkinson, he just threw my clock out the window, and my grand gave that to me, and he's going off about his clock. It wasn't anything special. I don't remember do you guys remember the catalog store? You could walk in and you could look through the catalog, and you walk up to the desk. That's what it was. It wasn't like, it wasn't engraved, from Grand to, Joseph Oliver. It was just one of those analog clocks. And I just threw that thing as hard as I could. Probably one of the happiest moments on my mission to the next month and a half, really just sleep and enjoy that, half an hour before 6. And then he and I, I said, we kind of had a rough start. And I remember chapping one day, and it was just pouring down rain, just absolutely pouring. And we go up to this high flat as we did. We saved all of the high flats when I was on my mission for those rainy days. And that happened quite frequently in Scotland, as you remember. And here we are walking up to this high flat. And we're going up the high flat, and we're buzzing these buttons. And I dutifully had written down every apartment number, if it was on the right side or left side. And all we need to do is I need to have Elder Oliver fill that out. As we're going through this, he wasn't really engaged because he's just thinking, oh, this is miserable. Why are we out here in all this rain? Why can't we just, chap around our flat and see if we can't find any of our contacts or anything like that? And of course, the mission golden rule really was the more you chap in the rain, the more beautiful your wife was. You guys remember hearing that?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I was dedicated, remember? I was dedicated to get up at 6 and go to bed when I needed to go to bed, and I was dedicated to be out. So I adamantly believed that my wife would be more beautiful when I got home for the hours I chapped in the rain. And so I'm like, okay, that's great. Let's do it, you know? And so wasn't really motivated that day. And we're ringing these buzzers, and everybody's just telling us, no, no, no. We just want to get out of the rain and off the stoop and into the high flats to go and teach somebody the gospel. And I remember as I'm going through these buttons and rejection after rejection after rejection, we get one guy. Who is this? Oh, hey, we're elders from the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints. We want to share with you the message about Jesus Christ. And he's like, absolutely not. You guys are a bunch of Mormons. Don't ever come to this building, and you're not allowed, and blah, blah, blah. And he really just abrasively just yells at us over the buzzer, right? I said, well, okay, no problem. We appreciate you letting us know that we're not welcome here. Thank you, though. So I continue going down the buttons, right? Or up the buttons, I should say. And I said, oh, well, did you write that down? He goes, yeah, I got it. Well, the flat next to him, it was a young Scottish gal, and she says, absolutely, I've been waiting to hear from you guys. I've been praying to hear somebody tell us the message. I'm like, oh, perfect. She lets us in, she buzzes us in, and we walk up, and I said, oh, Oliver, wasn't that guy that just told us no? Wasn't he on the same floor? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, what flat was that? Ooh, I think it was on the right side. I said, oh, okay. All right. So I walk over there and I knock on the left door, and I'm in front. Elder Oliver's kind of behind me a little bit, and it was the guy. He opens the door. What in the crap? And he's just going off and using all these expletives and telling us to go, on your bike, and all this stuff. And I'm like, hey, honest mistake. We got let into the building. I'm here to talk to somebody else. But hey, have a great day. He's like, no, I'm chasing you out. And he reaches behind the door and he grabs a cricket bat. At the moment that cricket bat comes out, he goes to start swinging. Why? I'd taken some martial arts growing up. I took about 11 years in a very eclectic Japanese martial arts called Funakushi. And so I'm fending him off, not really attacking, but fending him off as he's swinging at me with this cricket bat. And so finally, he kind of does an overhead strike. I come up with a double block, and I grab his cricket bat and rip it out of his arms. I'm 6'3". This guy's like maybe 5'2" on a good day, So I tear it out of his grip. I said, hey, now calm down. Leave me alone. We're going to go ahead and leave. He's like, good, leave. So I take his cricket bat with me, and I turn around, and Oliver is gone. Like, completely gone. I'm like, all right. Well, I take the cricket bat down the 2 or 3 flights of stairs, go outside, and I look at either side of the high flat. He's not there either. Where's the crap is he? And I step out into the road, and he's down the road like a good, 2 or 3 buildings. And he goes, Are you all right? Yeah, fine. You want a cricket bat? Where'd you go? And shortly after that experience, we get transferred. Well, I get transferred. And I go as far away from Glasgow as I possibly can, and I go all the way up north to Peterheath. And when I arrive at Peterheath, I have my third English companion. I think the greatest English companion I could ever have was Matthew Durnley. And Matthew Durnley and he meets me in Aberdeen. And we stay the night in Aberdeen because the train ride, if you remember how it works, you have to go from Paisley to Glasgow, from Glasgow to Edinburgh, and then go across town and catch the northbound train on the east coast of Scotland to go north. And so we went across the Firth of Forth, get all the way up to Aberdeen. That's where the train stops. It doesn't go past Aberdeen. You have to catch a bus then at that point to go all the way up to Peterheath and to make that happen. So instead of making that second leg of the journey, Elder Durnley takes me to the Zone Leaders Flat, and we get a chance to be buddies there at the Zone Leaders Flat. And thank goodness it was, the evening of P-Day. We got to joke around. We ordered some kebab pizzas and really just have a good time in Aberdeen. And so we travel the next morning, go up to Peterheath, and I arrive. And if either of you two brethren have ever been to Peterheath,
that's where we served together.
He trained me in Peterheath.
Okay. So did you guys live off of Victoria Road?
No, I think we were on King Street.
King Street? Okay, so we lived on Victoria Road. Okay. And the Victoria Road, it's a I wouldn't say it's a what do they call it? I wouldn't say it's a tenement housing. It was literally just two single homes. One home was on top and one home was on bottom, but it was a single building instead of being like a whole row of tenement buildings. And we're right across from the Bowling Green there in Peterhead. And Elder Durnley opens the door, and you literally walk down a hallway about as wide as my shoulders are. And you walk down, right off to the right is your bedroom that used to be the living room. And then you go a little bit further down, and then there's the dining room and where we do all of our companionship study. And then there's the kitchen in the back, and that's it. You know, like, and then a small bathroom that had a sitting bathtub. If you hadn't had one of those experiences in sitting bathtub, very unique because you sit down below ground, and so you step into it to take a shower and stand on the stool. But if you want to take a bath, you got to sit down, and the edge of the tub would come here, and you sit below the ground level, and you sit down. And it was a complete tip. Like, I don't know what Elder Durnley and his companion were doing or lack of doing in there, but it was like filth from like wall to wall, floor to ceiling. And I'm like, I can't do this, 23 years old. I can't live in a filthy place. I said, this is gonna be the first time I ever break mission rules, but tomorrow morning we're cleaning this tip up from top to bottom, and I said, look, Elder Durnley, the Spirit of the Lord can't dwell in a dirty place. So let's make this some consecrated ground for our companionship here, and just really kind of get stuck in. So we went to the local, wasn't even Asda. I think it was like a little pound shop on the corner, and we bought all their cleaning supplies in one go. Toilet cleaner, scrub brushes, everything we needed, right? And then brand new vacuum bags for their vacuum. And we just commenced cleaning this place. And by the time we're done, it's late into the evening, almost time for us to be in bed by our mission standards and rules. And okay, that's it. Tomorrow morning, we're now dedicated. Let's go and get ready to go. And we had an area that we went south of Peterhead, about halfway to Aberdeen, and then we went all the way over, all the way up north to Falkirk, and then from Fraserburgh, and then from Fraserburgh we went all the way over to somewhere closer to Banff and all those places in there, right? So we had this big area, and we have a car. This is the first time I ever had a car. I was like, oh wow, this is going to be fantastic. So we go through, and I quickly realized, one, Elder Durnley drives like a madman, okay? And we blow through all of our miles in like 4 days. All of our miles for a month, right? 4 days. Now we're stuck in Peterhead, and we have to walk around, I'm like, there's not much of Peterhead to walk around, we only do so much. And so for 4 days we blow through all of it because he wanted to show me the area that we could work in, right? Okay, all right. So we had a fantastic experience in Peterhead. I remember very distinctly one zone meeting conference. We decided to go through and plan out a P-Day activity for the zone. And I believe, I want to say, I can't remember who the zone leader was. I want to say Tucker was his last name or something along those lines. And he was the zone leader there. And so he asked President Wilkinson, hey, we want to go to Slains Castle. Slains Castle, if you remember, wonderful place, completely just beautiful, on a cliff's edge. And we want to go to Slains Castle. And so he says, sure, as long as you elders and sisters behave, and make sure, you're respectful and wear your name tags, and he gave us all the mission rules. I said, perfect, we'll go. So I remember we allotted some time in our mileage to be able to drive down to Slains from Peterhead. And of course, everybody else met us at the bus station. So we load, like, I think 8 of us into that Vauxhall, and you just pack everybody in. And you just in here like this, and you drive that short distance from the train or the bus station, and you go to Slains Castle. And we go outside. Remember that at Slains, it's literally just a off the roadway, and there's a gravel parking lot there, and then there's a farmer's track that goes all the way out into his field towards Slains Castle. Well, it had rained that day, and our initial idea was to go out and play capture the flag in the ruins of Slain Castle, right? Well, because it's so miserable and that walk is a little ways, we said, you know what? everybody get back in, the Vauxhall, and let's just head out. We're going to go down this farmer's track.
Oh no.
I'm
And
pretty
so
sure I heard about
I was
this.
like doing this, trying to drive because there's three of us, and then he's trying to manage the manual gear shift in the middle, and we have the sister in the back where the little boot was at, and we're just, whoa, and then we come to this puddle, and this puddle is massive, just huge. I probably say it's like 20 feet by like 15 feet wide, right? Just a massive puddle. So I do the tried and true method, being from Idaho. I grab a couple rocks on the side of the road and go bloop, bloop, bloop. And, it doesn't sound that deep, guys. Let's just go through it. We can't go off to the left or the right, because it's not gravel. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And so as we go, the zone leader backs up, gets a good run at it. Whap! And he's just popping through those gears, and we're going through it. We hit that water about halfway through. We hear this bam! Oh, well, what was that? And the car just sputters to a stop and then dives.
Oh my gosh.
No. So we get out, and this water's like 18 inches deep. And we look back, and there is a trail of black oil coming from the bottom of the car where we hit the oil pan on this massive stone that was in the middle of this 20-foot long puddle, 18 inches deep, 15 feet wide, and water's pouring into the Vauxhall Corsa. We're like, oh, great, the president's going to kill us, And so we frantically, we just got cell phones, by the way. We were one of the first missionaries in Europe to get cell phones as a practice trial run. So we call up on our cell phone, and we're looking for any local, local tow company to come get us out of here and then get us back to a garage to fix the vehicle before the president even knows, right? So that was our goal. Well, we get there, we find out that we did a lot more damage to the Vauxhall Corsa than we could actually fork out in all of our combined income. And inevitably, President Wilson had to be called, and it was a long, lengthy conversation. Fortunately, I wasn't the zone leader, so I didn't have to worry about it too much, other than I was there. And we get that car taken care of, and we had a wonderful day. Before that doom kind of set in of fixing the Vauxhall Corsa. And I just absolutely love Peter Heath, and it was fantastic. Shortly after being there with Elder Durnley, he gets transferred, and I get assigned to a new missionary, Billy Dalebout. If you haven't had the pleasure to meet Billy Dalebout, he's my first Utah companion. I was really kind of excited because I thought they were really prevalent, and he ends up being the mythical unicorn. And I thought at that time, oh, hey, my first Utah companion, perfect. We can talk, we can share. Well, Billy plays guitar exceptionally well. And I remember that we would spend many a P-Day Eve, right before bed, playing guitar and just enjoying, hymns or any music that we remember how to play, and it was just a great experience with him. And we worked really hard to go through and to really meet a really special guy. Alan Keith is his name. And Alan Keith, just heart of gold, but just wasn't just a very outgoing, physically kind of guy. So he was kind of festively plump, and I wish I could contact him again. I have no idea how to get in hold of him, but he wanted to be baptized. And I remember he had these rabid ferrets that he would go hunting rabbits with and hare with, and these ferrets were eating themselves, and all kinds of crazy stuff. But he was just a great guy, just really big. He was about 420 pounds or so, big guy, wanted to be baptized. We taught him all the lessons. We called it the zone leaders. He was ready to go. He talked to the zone leaders, went through the zone leader interview. Let's baptize Alan. Awesome. So we go in there, and I remember going to the church house, or rather the lack of church house there in Peter Heath. And I went to the bishop and said, hey, do we have an XXXL baptism onesie? He's like, no, we don't have anything that big. Okay, all right. Could we find somewhere that has that size, or could we get something ordered? And we want to make this special for Alan. I really worked with this for 2 months, going through the lessons, had a lot of great questions, had wonderful spiritual experiences with him. And we said, yeah, we can make that happen. So the bishop at the time ran down to Aberdeen, to the local ASDA there, and picked up the biggest white clothes you could possibly find. And we brought them up to Alan and they fit. And we said, great, perfect. Well, the baptismal font that we ended up using, we had to go to the Stake Center for in Aberdeen. And Alan, like literally, I'm in there and he's in there and I'm against the wall. I'm like, my 190 pounds, trying to make room for Alan to get in. And, we had a wonderful experience of baptizing him, but because he's such a big guy, I go to baptize him and they always have an elbow sticking out. They're like, no, you got full submersion. Okay, can we have some more water? Can we help something out? And Alan's laughing this time and we're kind of giggling about it, and they finally get him dunked, and the smile on his face was so sweet. It was so nice to see that, finally that was, my opportunity to make this contribution to my mission, to bring one soul to Christ, right? And so, just a sweet experience, and it was so nice. Shortly after that, I ended up moving about as far away as I possibly can and transfer. I go from Peterhead to Dumfries. And I arrive in Dumfries, and after that harrowing journey of coming all the way back down from the north and changing multiple trains and then getting to Edinburgh, and once I'm in Edinburgh, I get picked up by Ian Campbell, one of the most outstanding members at the time in the church that I just had the opportunity to meet. And he lived in Annan, and when he was living in Annan, he came up and he picked us up in his car. And he got me all the way down with my brand new companion, and my companion, first companion right there, ended up being Kevin Nelson. I'm sure you guys know Kevin Nelson. He helped kind of organize the S.E.M reunions and do all that stuff. And he was a president for a while. I don't know if he still is. I haven't got the letter for the last one just recently yet, but Kevin's just excited to be there. He's excited to be with me. We're excited to be working together, and he'll be my second missionary companion from Utah. I think these guys are great. What was all the stigma about all these Utah missionaries? And it should be just easy, right? And so we go through and we could travel all the way down. And the first place we stop off is Brother Campbell was a retired firefighter, and he responded to the Lockerbie disaster that took place and where the plane full of Americans and everybody coming to Scotland, rather taking off from Scotland, blew up. And he was one of the first responders to be there. And so he took us to the Lockerbie Memorial Site, and we get to see all the names of the Americans and everybody else that lost their lives. And it was really just kind of a humbling experience to think, boy, here's a dedicated individual that just got baptized a little while ago, and he knew how important this would have been to us to see this site for all these fallen Americans. And so he brought us there, the very first place we went. And then, of course, we went back into Dumfries. I lived right off of Church Street. Did either one of you brethren serve in Dumfries?
I did. That was my first area. So I probably wasn't in there very long after you. Ian was the ward mission leader when I was there. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes. Ian was there. So, did you live on Church Street when you were there?
Yeah, in that basement apartment.
Yeah.
Right.
Right across the way from the Camera Obscura, And we go into this deep, dark dungeon because remember they only had window at the front, window at the back, and that was it. And I just absolutely loved Dumfries every minute of it. I got the chance to follow up Elder Granavicius. He just left, and I replaced him coming into Dumfries. And the Copeland family there was fantastic. Jill Copeland and her husband Grant just loved them to death. Jill was a convert to the church. Elder Granavicius baptized her, and I got to follow up and do all those follow-up lessons with her. And we just come to love the Copeland family, and really just love the kids. Love them as great members of the church, and just really excited to be there. And I think I had the most fun on my mission in Dumfries. You get a chance to meet such down-to-earth people. Nita Crichton was there. Sister Crichton was just wonderful. She was like the grandma you always wanted from Scotland. She always made sure you were well fed and taken care of, and all the biscuits and all the snacks and the treats and all that stuff. And then, good proper meals on Sunday after church, and just really took care of you. Really just had the opportunity to make you very welcome the ward. And Nita Crichton, still good friends with her on Facebook, and just loved every minute of it. And then after Kevin Nelson, then I had Ben Fowler. Ben Fowler was my next companion, and he was there with me for Dumfries for the last part of my transfers and time there in Dumfries, and we just hit it off. Fantastic individual, another great Utah missionary, and we just did everything together and just loved everything. The Chippy shop down the road from the flat was one of our most favorites. Walking across Lady Debagella Bridge and going to the White Sands area and hitting that Chippy shop right there was like the quintessential Chippy shop of all Scotland. It was just wonderful. And so after my time with Elva Fowler, I went to the concrete jungle of Cumbernauld. Cumbernauld was the exact opposite you could ever think of what Scotland could be. It's not green. It's the lack of vegetation, and it's all concrete. And if you remember,
that's the exact move I made. I went from Dumfries to Cumbernauld. Yeah.
So you go from Eden on earth in Scotland, Dumfries, to Cumbernauld. You know what I mean? Where the town is literally an old Roman fort that was rebuilt and designed everything around the motor car and the pedestrian never crossing paths once. So if you had to get somewhere, it was all within 15-minute walking distance. And of course, you wanted always to hit the local Marks and Sparks or the Asda that was right there. And that was about it. And so everything you could do, was right around town center. And that's where I met some of the most wonderful individuals there outside of Cumbernauld, which was the Armour family, Bob and let's see, I want to say it's Bob and Marion Armour. Have you ever had a chance to meet them when you were there by chance?
I think so. Sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. He's a big guy. He's like tall, way tall. He's like probably 6'3", 6'4", just a big guy. And he's a former police officer. He worked for the Strathclyde Police Department.
They have 9 kids or something like that?
14.
14, yeah, a ton. Especially
of kids.
for Scotland.
And that was like unheard of, right? We're like, what's going on here? I mean, we always kind of joked around that the Catholics had the most kids, but when the Armours came along, boy, they just knocked that out of the park, right? And just wonderful, warm, welcoming family. He was always interested in what we're doing, always excited at what we're happening and going on, and all the kids. I mean, I think at least once every other week, he would check up on us as missionaries and say, "All right, elders, call up your mission president. We're going to Stirling Castle. We're going to take you there on your P-Day, and my wife and I we're gonna go and treat you guys to lunch, and we just really appreciate and love you." So he'd do that once a week and really just spend time with his family. We ended up baptizing his daughter-in-law. His daughter-in-law was Natalie Black, and she got baptized. We got to convert her and to baptize her and really kind of bring that family as his son later on married Natalie. And we got to experience that wonderful, again, that sweet moment of baptisms in Scotland. We didn't get to experience that very often. We were one of the missions that was like, 1 in 10 missionaries would get a baptism, and so what a sweet moment I could have too, And so we had a wonderful opportunity to bring Natalie to church and have a strong family to support her. And we just absolutely, I just absolutely loved Cumbernauld, despite all the concrete, despite being, an ugly area in Scotland amongst all the green. And shortly after that,
hey, before you move on, Chris, who is your companion in Cumbernauld?
Oh, my first companion in Cumbernauld was Ryan Doan. Ryan Doan. Ryan ends up being another missionary from Utah, and I finished out strong with Ryan, and then right after Ryan, we had one last transfer, and it was Kyle Leet was my last companion in Cumbernauld, and boy, that Kyle could work. He loved to walk, but he was not fast. He was not fast. I'd be walking along. I'm 6'3", I have a long gait, and Kyle didn't have that blessing. He would just walk as fast as he could on his, shorter legs, because this guy was he was built. I think he played either rugby or American football, and he was just a big guy, but he just had these unfortunate short legs. And I would just always try to go everywhere as quick as I could because I was on a mission, right? I had limited amount of time, and I'd go through and I'd make that all happen. And I just, love that guy. He was really motivated. He kept me from getting trunky. He kept me from, doing all these things that I wanted to do to prepare for going home. And he goes, no, focus. Let's focus. And so Kyle would get me focused, and we'd go out and do the work. And it was just absolutely wonderful. And then at the end of my mission, I went home, and it was October 24th, 2003 when we went home. And then by December 30th, I was married. So,
Goodness,
that's an awesome whirlwind you took us on. Fun to hear. We had a lot of overlap there, so it's pretty cool. One thing we always ask people is just memories you have of mission presidents and their wives. So for you, most of the time that would have been President Wilkinson and then President Brains for the last little bit.
Yep, that's correct. President Wilkinson, boy, what a spiritual giant. When you first look at President Wilkinson, you're like, oh, he's not a very big statured individual, but spiritually, he was just a giant. I remember just meeting him, and he always wore the classic "I'm living in Scotland now" sweater underneath his suit coat. I don't think I think he was like half the guy for the amount of sweater that he would wear, going anywhere. And he was just so warm, so loving. And I watched your guys' podcast when you interviewed President Wilkinson and Sister Wilkinson, and it just brought back just wonderful experiences being there on the mission and having him just kind of love you, for who you are and what you did, and what a great opportunity that was. I have nothing but respect and admiration for that man and his beautiful wife, and it was just outstanding, wonderful opportunity for me to serve the majority of my mission with President Sister Wilkinson, and then President Greens being the exact opposite. I remember him being so tall and so just, big hands, and he just grab a hold of you and you go, Elder Martin, let's get some work done, and he was just fired up because he's a brand new mission president, and he was with me on my mission for probably about 4 months or so, or maybe 6 months at the most. And he was just always, how's that work going? And I remember he even came by to our apartment one time, like out of the blue, unannounced. And thank goodness it was P-Day right before we just cleaned the flat, and he just comes up, I'm just checking on all my elders, how you guys doing? Where's Sister Breens? Oh, she's in the car. She doesn't want to come up. I'm like, all right, good. The toilet's not clean. Don't look, It was just a great experience to really kind of have that unique change in somebody that wanted to be involved in the mission and be right there with you. And he wanted to almost climb in the trenches, to coming from somebody that had already been in the mission with President Wilkinson and had already, established, himself amongst the people of Scotland and amongst the strong church members there. And he was an individual that was known, and President Breens wanted to make that known that he was ready to do the work with you and to really be involved. And so to serve with both of those mission presidents was a blessing for me. And the skills that I learned from them, and both of their tactics of getting you ready and working with you, I applied them to my whole life. My life in law enforcement, my life as a teacher now, to be, kind, soft-spoken, but when I needed to, I could step up and say, I'm President Breens, and really take control of that situation, right? So great opportunities to learn from both those fine brethren. So
that's great. Thank you. And any other missionaries? I mean, you went through the list of companions, some people you served around, but anybody else you want to shout out from the older than me generation that we need to get on here? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a shout out to Dennis Granavicius. What a fantastic guy coming from Europe, speaking not a lick of English, and then trying to make himself understood to us missionaries as he spoke his native language, with a little bit of English mixed in. I would love to call out, Reynolds was his last name. His first name is, bear with me 2 seconds. Adam Reynolds. Adam Reynolds was another fantastic Englishman that you get a chance to hang around with and to just to really, pal around and enjoy your time in the mission together, and just a fun guy. And then lastly, I'd always want to just to call out, Chad Piersky. Chad Piersky and I became really good friends. We started in the MTC together. We went all the way through. Though I hadn't served with Chad, we always kept in touch. We'd always make that, hey, where are you transferred to? Okay, all right, I'll give you a call. Give me a number when you get a chance, And we'd always go back and forth and call each other up and see how our week went, or what was going on. And we just kept in touch. And even to this day, I call him up, hey, dude, what's up, dude? And that was my catchphrase for everything, dude, what's up, dude? And so we'd go through and talk to each other that way all the time. And now, where he lives in, Boonesville, Missouri, call him up all the time to say, hey, what's up, Chad? What are you doing, dude? But this has been a great experience, absolutely great experience. So,
yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time coming on. It's been awesome for us, and just hearing, through the years where people served and who they served around with, and the legends of Scotland, right? So,
absolutely,
it's great.
You're more important to us because you're our brother in Peterheath.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That strong connection, even down to Dumfries and Cumbernauld, so, but, one of the things I want to bring up to you, the very first time I'd ever seen icebergs was in Peterheath, coming off the North Sea. It was in the middle of January. And remember the lighthouse out there on the Lido? It would sit there and spin and spin. Well, we were always showing that picture. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see the picture. I think it was back in the 60s or 70s. They had this huge wave come in, and it just completely covered the lighthouse. Well, one morning as Elder Durnley and I were driving around, we get up on top of this brae, right, this hill, and we look out, and it's just fog everywhere, just completely beautiful. And the fog has made little green islands everywhere. And as we're looking out, beautifully clear day above, all this fog down in the glens, and you look out across, and there's this iceberg just floating off in the distance. The most unreal thing to see, in the middle of Scotland, thinking that we're miles away from anything that's really, really cold.
Yeah. Wow.
That's incredible. Goodness. I didn't see any of those, that's for sure. Oh, wow.
Felt like I was living on an iceberg. But I never saw. Yeah.
The smell of sheep, the sheep and fish. I don't think I could ever get that out of my mental smell category up here, my library of smells. Do you guys remember when the ship would come in after 3 months of being out at sea and then come back to Peterheath and they'd unload the cod? You remember go chopping outdoors, people that worked there at the fish factory, the smell of cod oil coming off the house, coming off their clothes, coming out. You're just like, whew. So how's the fish factory today? They're like, how'd you know? Well, I don't want to be rude, but that's pungent.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I do remember the smell. It was definitely a unique one. Every time you drove into town, it was like, yeah, we're in Peterheath.
Especially living right off there on King Street, where we're on Victoria Road, it was a little further out. We're next to a bowling green. It was on the edge of town, heading to the west. But Kings Road was right in the middle of Peterheath.
It was the main thoroughfare there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were like, I don't know, 3 buildings off that massive roundabout. That that was a busy street.
Yes, it was.
Especially on Friday night. Goodness gracious. Well, Chris, we've really enjoyed having you. It's been awesome to get to know you through your mission experience, and obviously we had some commonalities, so it was really nice to have you, and we just love you. We're grateful that you're our brother in Scotland, so thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack and Zach. This has been a great trip down memory lane. I think I sat down with my wife and we pulled out the several, Tupperware totes of missionary memorabilia. And I just had an opportunity to go through and just relive all that with my family and my boys and my daughter. And what a great blessing you guys brought back, all those wonderful, sweet memories and those bitter cold ones, especially in Peter Heath. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right,
See ya.
Chris. Love you. Have a good night.
You as well. Good night. Thank
All
you.
right. Cheerio.